in our spiritual exercises just this past week, we meditated on this gospel, and it struck me in a very deep way. What struck me was Peter's faith. There was the storm, right? And Peter and the other apostles should have been used to storms. They were fishermen. But this one's particularly powerful. And they feared death. They feared they were going to be killed by the waves, by the water, by the wind. But then they see a figure walking toward them on the water, and Christ calls out to them. And then Peter sees Christ and says, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come on the water, come out to you on the water." In that moment, Jesus calls him. And Peter has the faith then and the strength to know that that was Jesus, that is Jesus calling him out into the storm. And now just imagine Peter getting out of the boat. The storm's still going on. It's raging, it's pounding. The waves are coming up and over the boat. The water is in his face. But Peter sees Christ and takes the step. He swings one foot out, then the other, and plants his feet firmly on water. But he still has his hand on the boat. And imagine that moment, he lets go of the boat. Total faith that Jesus is calling him on the water. And he can walk on water. He's walking towards Jesus. His eyes fixed on Jesus. And he's about to meet him, but then he looks around him, and the storm comes over him. He sees the raging waves. He sees the raging water. He feels the cold water down his back. He sees the darkness closing in on him, and he begins to sink. He takes his eyes off Christ, and he begins to sink. But right before he falls underneath the water, he calls out, "Lord, save me," and reaches out his hand. And immediately Christ was there to grasp his hand and pulls him out of the water. It's only when Peter grasps Christ's hand that his faith is restored. And as he grasps Christ's hand, he's pulled out of the water, and they walk back to the boat. And the storm is still raging. The water's still moving. The waves are still buffeting. The wind is still howling. The darkness is still there. But Peter is with Jesus, walking back to the boat. And he gets into the boat, and the storm stops. Only when Christ comes to the boat does the storm actually stop. And reflecting on this in my spiritual exercises and applying it to our lives now, it fits perfectly because our lives are full of storms. We have the turmoil from our past, from this new year, the new experiences, a new life for most of us. And it feels like the storm is raging around us, and there could be darkness. Pretty soon there will be a lot more darkness for all of you who don't come from the US. But the storm is not the end. When Christ calls you to come out into the water, what are your attachments? What is your boat? What do you have to let go of? What do you need to let go of to have that perfect faith to walk to Jesus on the water? And we must realize we have to walk out into the storm. We don't wait until the storm is gone to walk to Jesus. But Jesus calls us into the storm, into the darkness, to walk out to him. And when our faith fails, because it will fail, we are all stained by original sin. When our faith fails, will we call out to Christ and grasp his hand for that faith to be restored? We must find Christ on these stormy waters. We will experience many stormy waters. Find Christ there. Christ in the Eucharist here now is the same Christ who walked on those waters. So for us, we must cry out to him, renew your faith in Christ, and let him calm your storms.